Good for you. Participants.
Welcome back, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Will you oversee?
Oh,
United States.
How's the family?
Thank you.
You're on and we are late. Uncharacteristic.
Okay. Boker Tov, everyone. And Moshe Rabbeinu continues his discourse to the Jewish people. This week's Parsha Shiur. There's a very central theme that Moshe introduces, and that is the theme regarding Lo Sikach Shochat. Do not cut yourself. Do not take bribes. Now, Shochat is omnipresent in the world because it comes in different levels, different nuances, and many times it's not even recognizable. The greater a person is, the more likely that person is to be able to recognize Shochat. So, for instance, the Talmud tells us that the great Amora Mar Shmuel, who was the judge, the Dayan, the Rav, Rosh Yeshiva in Ardoa. Ardoa was one of the main Jewish cities in Bavel. At the time of Shmuel, Ardoa and Surah were the two main centers. Later on, it became Surah and Pumbedita. They're cities on the Tigris, around the Euphrates, and to a great extent, they were Jewish cities, meaning that the Jews were not the majority population, but the Jews had a great influence in the cities themselves, much as one time Jews in New York did, or other foreign cities in the world that had a large Jewish population, Warsaw, Vilna, etc. So Shmuel was the head of the Beth in Ardoa. The Gemara tells us that one day Shmuel was walking Ardoa, but since it was on the river, had bridges that crossed the river. The bridges apparently were very narrow. And Shmuel wanted to cross from one side of the river to the other. And a Jew saw him, and the Jew made way for him. So to speak, he gave up his turn to cross so that the Rav, Shmuel, the Dayan, would cross first. Later in the day, Shmuel noticed that this man came before him in a din Torah, in a manner that had to be judged. And Shmuel recused himself. He took himself off from judging because he said that he had received shochat from this person. What was the shochat? He let the Rav go first. So by most people, that would not be considered shochat. If I would be cynical enough, I would say even by most Rabbonim, it wouldn't be shochat. It's the entitlement of office. But bribery is a very, very sophisticated and delicate matter. And many of the great rabbis in our history have remarked that the whole world is mishulchat. There's a corruption that exists in human society that almost cannot be eradicated. So there's a direct corruption, there's no question. You know, I want my permit to go through, I pay you 5,000 shekel, it goes through. So that's open shochat. Even though I will say I'm entitled to my permit anyway. But I don't want all the bureaucratic mess that goes with it. I want to expedite it. So I pay the man to do it. But I'm not bribing him to do something wrong. So that people think that somehow that type of corruption is acceptable. And that's what the Pasuk teaches us. Shochad blinds the eyes of other people who could usually see. They don't see it anymore. I'm entitled to the permit. I'm not building illegally. I'm not doing anything wrong. So I'm blind to the fact that I'm corrupt. And that's why it says, V'yisalev divrei tzadikim. My friend Professor Tversky used to always say, doesn't say V'yisalev divrei rishoyim, that it somehow perverts the words of evil people. It perverts the words of the righteous. The righteous now. So we, we are all victim of this. There are a lot of things that we have to say today that we really don't believe. Not only don't believe, that may be completely opposite to what we do believe. And we're righteous people, but I don't want to start up. I don't want that, they should jump on me, they should cancel me, they should do whatever. So it takes the words of the righteous and falsifies them so that they cannot be believed either. So there are so many levels of this in human society. So as I mentioned now, there's a level of what will others say? Will it harm my business? Will it affect somehow my family or standing? So all of those are more subtle. They're not blatant shochat. They're not, I'm giving you 5,000 shekels to do something. But because of prevailing circumstances in society, etc., I'm, so to speak, lowering my colors. I'm behaving differently than I want to behave. Chazal always pointed out that the greatness of our father Avraham and mother Sarah was the fact that they were not influenced by that type of shochat. The classic example is the Akedah. We're going to study it on Rosh Hashanah. So the Medrash has a conversation between the Sultan and Avram Avinu on the way to the Akedah. And the Sultan, which is Satan lives within us. Everybody has their own Satan. And the Sultan says to Avram Avinu, listen, look what you accomplished your entire life. You brought thousands of people to monotheism. The Miri says in his introduction to Avos that Avram Avinu brought a majority of his society to discard Avodah Zarah and to have a concept of monotheism. So look what you accomplished. And you are known as the Amud HaChesed. If there's a good person in the world, it's Avram Avinu and Sarah. If there's any place you need a meal, you need shelter, you need a helping hand, it's the address is Avram and Sarah. There's the tent open to all four directions. Anyone can come in. So now you're going to take your son and you're going to murder him. And you're going to say that your God told you to do this. After teaching us for all of these years that God is merciful, that God does not demand the impossible, that God is beneficial to human beings. So with this one act, you're going to undo everything that you accomplished. That's what the Sultan tells Avram. And the Medrash says that Avram is shaken by this. Yet, he goes through with it. So at the end, nothing happens. Don't touch him. And now I know that you're it. Yan Hamanto bi. You had faith in me. So I'm going to build the world from you. In effect, God tells him, you were not subject to this corruption. The corruption of saying, what will everybody else say? What will the world think? One of the great issues throughout the Jewish history has always been, it's raised in the debates between the Christian church and the rabbis of the Middle Ages, especially in Spain. It's also raised in the works of Islam. You want to tell me that 1 billion people are wrong and that the 15 million are right? You want to tell me the whole world doesn't know what they're doing? And not only that, I'll show you what kind of world it is. World of art and philosophy and drama and technology and civilization. So Chazal also phrased it in their own inimitable fashion. They said in Tomar L'Chodom, Chochma Bagoyim, if someone comes and tells you that there is civilization in the world, there's wisdom, there's knowledge, there's a Sorbonne, there's Oxford, there's Harvard, Tommy, believe them. Don't say Sigornish, it's nothing. It's no value. You're not allowed to say that, Tommy. It's true. But Torah Bagoyim al Tommy. But if you think that somehow that makes them right, that their moral code is correct, that their beliefs are accurate. Al Tamin, don't believe that. It's not true. One thing has nothing to do with the other. That's a form of corruption. What will they say? You're a billion people. Who cares what they say? Al Tamin. Doesn't change what is. And to the lasting credit of the Jewish people, and it is the basic cause of anti-Semitism and of all of everything that has happened to us over the thousands of years of our existence, is because somehow our existence itself challenges the rest of the world. And therefore calls a lot of things into question. So that's a form of corruption. Want to be like everybody else. That's why Chazal emphasized rules of dress and of speech and of external behavior. So the rest of the world can mock us. But that mockery is a form of corruption if you give into it. If somehow you're weakened by it. And that's a great challenge, a great struggle. It's been the main struggle of the Jewish people over all of the ages. And we see that the rest of the world attempts always to impose its value system, its educational system, its curriculum, its way of life upon us. So that you won't have a choice. And they do it in the name of great and exalted good. But that's a form of shochet. And it perverts us. It makes us what we are not. And so that story of Avram at the Akedah has to be seen in this light as well, as a resistance to shochet. The shochet that the rest of the world will say. So to speak, you're denying yourself. And that's why Chazal counted it by Avram Avinu. It says, Asoris Nisyonos Nisasa Avram Avinu v'Yomad B'Kulam. He was tested 10 times. Every time is the same test, though. In a different form, but it's the same test. He's childless. He has no progeny. So how's he going to continue this idea? It's going to pass away with him. Oh, he has a son, Yishmael. Look at that guy, the most wild animal in the world. Yorabakol, the Yad Kol Bo. He's going to be the example. So Avram is always faced with the same challenge. That everything that's demanded of him apparently is contradictory to what he has accomplished or wants to accomplish. And that's the struggle against shochet, against being meshuchet. against somehow having a resistance factor, an immunity to the outside pressures that exist. Because of the fact that this bar of shochad is set so high, so it becomes almost impossible to have judges that somehow are not part of it. Any rabbi will tell you that if there's a dispute between two congregants, he should not become involved. Let him go. That's why the Lord created other rabbis. Because whatever he does is wrong. But unfortunately, it happens many times that it becomes unavoidable. And then you have the problem. Rabbi's contract is going to come up. All sorts of issues. So it's not direct shochad at all, but it's shochad that is insidious, that eats at us, that makes us so uncomfortable with ourselves. So Chazal saw this also as a psychological problem. The problem with ego. We think many times that disputes are about money. In my experience, they rarely are about money. About ego. About me. What I'm entitled to. In my life experience, I've seen disputes within families. The father passed away, and he left an awful lot of money. There's enough money there that every heir can take an equal share and go home and live the rest of one's life without financial worry. But does that happen? I want this and I want that. My father meant that I should have this. In fact, that Chazal said that because of these things that are so common, one should die penniless. Give it all away. Where it says on that they told Rabbi Yochanan that his Chavrusa, Lakish, his brother-in-law, Shimon ben Lakish, passed away. Rabbi Yochanan asked, did he leave anything? So they said, yes, he left over a pot of vegetables. So he said, oy vey, I thought he was smarter than that. Says v'yozvu la'acherim chayla, to leave wealth to others. Therefore, Chazal always looked at these things, make a pshora, take a compromise. Compromise is very bruising to the ego. Because in a compromise, one automatically says, I'm not 100% right. And since the whole argument usually is that I'm 100% right, so it's very hard to admit that I'm not 100% right, which is what a compromise demands of me. Yet the halacha is that every compromise in the world should be attempted before going to full judgment. Because full judgment rarely brings about a truly equitable and lasting settlement. It keeps on going. The tragedy many times in family is that it is generational. I know cousins that are still fighting over the altar Zayda. They don't even know what they're fighting about. They just know it's a mitzvah to hate the other cousins. So that's pure ego. That has nothing to do with the issue involved. So that's the form of shochad that the Torah warns us against. The Torah does not tell us that we will be able to perfect ourselves to eliminate it. The Torah just wants us to be aware of it. And simply being aware of it gives one pause. That was the idea that always existed in the Jewish world, that when a person has a dilemma as to what to do or what to say, he went to ask a wise man for advice. Why? Because the wise man in a good state is not guilty of shochad on this issue. He's an outsider. So he is not affected by it. There were many times that the halacha brings that you're not allowed to even reveal the name of the outsider that is giving you advice or settling the matter. Because if you do that, so then you open it up to shochad. So when the Torah says simple things, life is very complicated. There rarely is a simple answer to anything in life. Moshe, this entire discourse of Chumash Dvarim deals with human beings, with human life. What is involved here? And therefore, it's a lesson, an ongoing lesson in human behavior and what the Torah demands from us and the level that we should set for ourselves. So we always read these parshas before Rosh Hashanah in the month of Elul, because they're meant to concentrate our mind on ourselves and on what we are and what we can be. And even if we fall short, but at least we know, at least there's a clarity as to what should be. Oftentimes in life, that itself is sufficient. So thank you for coming and have a great Shabbat. Next week, we're still on, so we hope to see you. Call to Shabbat Shalom.
Use the sort of compromise today. I mean, the arguments about the vaccine, we're 100% right. Right, they say we're anything. It was decided for the story. Shalom Aleichem.
You haven't been here in 6 months. It's so good to see you in person. I see you on YouTube quite a bit. Yes. Have you been, Baruch Hashem? Hashem, good. Mishpach Rodai. Okay, have a good Shabbos. How you doing?
Thank you, Mr.
היה לי מאוד אקטואלי למשהו.
What's the title of the shiur?
Corruption.
יש לך דקה? אני נמצא פה.